Hey everybody, how's it going tonight? Hey Dylan, welcome to the stream. So I don't normally do this on Saturday nights, but I just have a lot of work to do. So I figured why not have some fun and stream at the same time. And talk to all my 3D printing friends and model enthusiasts while I churn through my work here. I got all kinds of stuff on the build plates here lately, and just have not had the time to dig through it all. Those up there for now. So basically, all I'm doing tonight is just working on projects. You guys can definitely ask 3D printing questions, model questions, any of that kind of stuff, because I got some stuff that's just in progress. I'm still working out some kinks and bugs on it, but also just I got some like these. I've got some painting I got to wrap up on. These have started to come along very nicely. I've put a lot of work into these this last week to try to narrow these guys out. I'm starting to get a lot of the color in there, definitely making them a lot better, and their significant other little minis are also coming along. So actually, I know it's going to bring it down into the shot here, but that camera is really far away for some reason. There we go. So as I work through these two, which are basically those two, just smaller. But those have been, goodness, I've been working on those for 3 months probably. I got more painting to do on the Zhang He. It's coming along a lot further than what I was a few weeks ago. I'm going to give you guys a hobby tip, especially on these windows, as we go along. And then I really need to finish these up, and they're coming along really well. I've got to do something about the grill. I'm thinking about just doing that in paint, but no, I sell them too. So I make them within the rules, but people will ask me to print stuff for them, stuff like that. So I do some sales with it, but usually pretty limited within what I'm working on. But mainly what I try to do is teach you guys how to do this on your own. So especially, I don't think you'd be able to, oh dear, that was almost bad. I don't think I'd be able to sell this one. I've been working on it for so long, and actually finally took it into its metallic colors. These are actually sold. These are a commission that someone asked me to print and do for them. So they designed the model and everything. I just put it together. Then I work on stuff like this, which is a pretty awesome Mandalorian that I need to start adding more color back into now that I've gotten the metal all worked out. Start taking the clothes back to a clothes color and stuff like that. But I got little things like this little Batwing just needs a little bit of love. Just needs some filler in the line gap and then a good coat of paint. But I'll go very light detail. I don't have anything that's exactly light detail to very in-depth painting. I do both. So, and then probably start getting this cleaned up here. Start putting this. So it's just going to be a segment, but basically we're going to work on a halo diorama over the next couple weeks. And what's really cool about this print is the entire inlay here where the ground would be is completely empty, which lets us have a lot of fun. And then a little bit of blue LED lights is going to make the ring light up really nice. And it's going to be a fairly large one. This is only 2 pieces. The plan is to make this 4 pieces. 4 pieces. Give it a good curve to it. So that's one of the Halo projects right now. So there is one of these that where these segments are 50% smaller that I plan on doing a full halo ring, doing the LED light, and then we'll do the filler through the inside of it. So I want to start assembling that tonight. What else we got here? And maybe we'll get to this guy and start getting some color and detail onto the Spirit of Fire finally. So this one has been hasn't been on the desk very long. I just made it a week or two ago, but I've got it in primer. It's ready to go for some really good color. Probably gonna use a basalt as the base, 'cause with this gray primer, I think the basalt's gonna look really good and give it a good contour. So glue with PLA. This is a great question because PLA will actually take pretty much any glue, which is not a problem. A lot of times you'll see me use super glue, which this is a Dollar Tree super glue, brand. Even just normal super glue. But I will also use the Tester's modeling glue. It works really, really well to bond these things together. Good example of it's especially for small parts, like I'll use the Tester's glue. Revell makes a good one that works really well. If I'm working with models and clear parts, I'll go for the Tester's clear part cement. Basically any cement will really work. I don't recommend Gorilla Glue because it tends to foam up and to expand. You can use epoxy. I feel like I'm forgetting one. The Tamiya extra thin. Now a couple streams ago I showed this off. So I do model kits as well, and a lot of the sprue that's left over you can actually make what's called sprue goo. And this is basically the Tamiya extra thin. Take about a half bottle of this and fill the other half of the bottle with the sprues, and the sprues will actually melt down with the Tamiya glue and create a goo that works really well as an adhesive, but also as a filler for most models. So it's great for helping with like seam lines and different things like that and get stuff filled in. So the Tamiya extra thin is definitely worth your time. And making it into the sprue goo is also worth your time. So basically I'd recommend getting you 2 bottles because I like using the glue as a glue, especially on miniatures. But I like having the sprue goo as well, especially on bigger models. The sprue goo can be quite a helping tool. So now that's with PLA. Now if you're doing resin, I'm going to go to the other ballpark here. Your best friend is super glue. The Testers, the Tamiya, none of that stuff will work with resin. So you got to keep that in mind. You're going to have to work mainly with super glue to adhere resin parts together. I've not tested epoxy, so I'm not quite sure if that one works. But the tried and true with resin prints is super glue. And I need to put this back over here where it belongs, so this can move back up here now that I'm looking at it. So does that kind of help answer your question, Dylan, on what you should be using or what is usable? I keep looking over there, but the chat's right here. So but basically I'm going to work on these right now because I need to work on filling them a bit better than what I've done. Basically I've given them the first layer fill. Now I need to do the second to get that seams out because I want to try to minimize the seams in the paint as much as possible. And for that I'm going to use the Tamiya basic type plastic. I started with the Vallejo to give a good fill layer. Now I'm going to come back with this Tamiya and just put it on there. And try to get a good fill in here. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like seams. So I try to smooth them out as much as I possibly can and hide them underneath. And I know this still is going to require some sanding, but it's one of those things. it's still fun to work on. And for bulk jobs like this, I have my little sanding tool that will make quick work of this. So and I'm just using a Q-tip to quickly spread the filler down the seam lines. Try to preserve that line right there. And just go to town. Well then, Dollar Tree may be your friend on this one, Dylan. Because that's what I use, is just the Dollar Tree super glue, and it does a really good job. Now one other thing too, with you saying you're making a spring-loaded tool, that's going to put a lot of tension on the filament. So one thing you may want to consider is actually looking at epoxy, which you can also get that at Dollar Tree for $1 of a mix epoxy for added strength. Let's see here, what else can you do? One thing you might want to also consider is a 3D printing pen, and actually meld your material with its own material. That's basically turning it into one solid piece of plastic thanks to the wonderful this handheld pen. So these run about 40 to 80 bucks. I think this one's like 50, 59, but it works really well. You take your end of your filament spools, and it gives you a lot more use of discarded short spools. So it's definitely a handy tool to keep in your inventory for putting stuff together. Basically with making it one solid piece versus just relying on glue to hold it all together. So kind of keep that in mind as well, that that is an option for you. I'm kind of curious about a spring-loaded guitar pick holder. That's sounds like a fun. Are you gonna make that like where it can clip to the guitar? I'm kind of curious now. And keep the picks in there. That sounds like a really handy tool. I know several people that like to play music, so definitely sounds interesting. But all in all, I want to get this done tonight so I can sand tomorrow. And hopefully put these in primer by end of day tomorrow is kind of my goal right now. So I want to try and get some stuff off my build plate here, but we all live busy lives, I know. I don't know about you guys. I'm constantly busy, whether it's creating content for here or my day job or any of that. The IT field's always a learning field, so I am always having to pick up new skills every day and learn new things about 3D printing every day, because this changes quite frequently. Especially some of the new additions in Cura with changes around infill that I'm reading about here may speed up printing quite a bit. And may explain some of the issues I've had with printing here lately. You're probably looking at this going, Mike, you're just making a big old mess of this, but in reality I'm not. Once I sand and prime, you're not even going to know this was here. So the key piece is sanding, and I've got a little sander from Micromark that doesn't melt these prints and works really well for this kind of stuff. So be a very helpful tool. All right, got those done. Clean up some excess I got on my table here. And we'll set this guy aside. We'll move on to the next victim here. And this one needs the Vallejo first, because the Vallejo is going to let me get in around this better than the Tamiya will, because the Vallejo putty has a nice narrow applicator. So this one will let me just get into the seam, right into the seam line here, and get this one cleaned up really, really well. Just like that. So the Greater Geek, printing Starfleet vessels can be extremely annoying. It's trial and error, but also make sure you're taking advantage. I'm assuming you're slicing in Cura. Make sure you're taking advantage of that custom support plugin that I showed in the marketplace to be able to add your custom supports, because a lot of times what I'll do around the warp nacelles is actually, you're making a great point, and I'm going to try to pull some. Okay, I got to finish this before I can do that. But I use the custom supports to kind of surround the warp nacelles. So a lot of times, some ships I may print warp nacelle up depending on what ship it is. Some of them I print with the warp nacelles down. It just kind of depends on what ship I'm printing. So it's a give or take every way. Now the way that I showed you in the video worked for me. And it depends on the model. Hopefully you're using the same model I am. But I'm going to remote connect down to another computer real quick, and I will show you what I mean by this custom support. Oh, that's because I rebooted. I should try to show you this custom support method I'm talking about. And since you said third or tried warp nacelle down, what model is it, Geezer Geek? Is it what Federation ship? ZX Prime. Don't be mean. Come on, Kira. I might be disappointing you here because Kira is running horribly slow. Okay, now we're kind of back to normal. Alright, I'm going to switch over here. Let's bring the camera over so you can actually see me. And let's switch to... This should work. Yes. Alright. So... You're seeing something that hasn't come to the channel yet. Now, I haven't done a Kelvin. So here's what I'm going to show you. This is a Galaxy class Dreadnought I'm working on. It's got 3 nacelles. I'm printing it warp nacelle down, but here's what I've done with the custom supports. You can see I've made a cradle with the custom supports around it. When you add the plug-in, it pops over here. You can use a cylinder or a square to add supports to your warp nacelles. And that prints up a stronger support than most. But what the problem is a lot of time too is the nacelle is kind of suspended and the printer has to hop from the hull to the warp nacelle. and that can create a drag that will rip your warp nacelles off. So one thing you may want to make sure is, what is your Z-hop set to, if you have Z-hop enabled. It's a checkmark box. You can just go over here and actually type in Z-hop, and it'll bring up all the settings. Like, I have it enabled, and I have it set to jump 0.4. So what that does is, when it goes to move to another part, it raises the nozzle, moves over, and then sets the nozzle back down. Now, this could also be part of the problem. I've had it where Z-hop has been a problem as well, where it's actually knocking the part off. When it pops back down, it twists it. And the warp nacelles are relatively a pain. You can see I've basically cocooned this one because it just kept failing. Now this model is, and actually, I can actually show you. This model has gotten past the warp nacelles finally. And actually, I think we have finally finished the navigational deflector. I need to go move the camera later tonight so it keeps going. But this model is finally starting to build up the way it should. But what happened is that third nacelle would just kept going into pieces, getting knocked off, which sounds exactly like what's happening to you. And this custom support, I mean, just try to cocoon the nacelles the best you can. You can even tap like halfway up a nacelle, and it will place the support right next to it, but it won't go into the nacelle. It'll print around the actual model and help keep stuff supported there. So some models I found, just the warp nacelle, they just suck. You'll notice there hasn't been a discovery on this on my channel, because I don't think I've printed a successful discovery yet. You know what? I probably ought to give that a try. I'll be kind of honest. The Crossgrove class, I kind of find a little ugly. But I have not tried a Kelvin class either. I haven't tried any of the Kelvin timeline. Probably should. Just haven't done it. I kind of have a problem with the Kelvin timeline, that the fact that Enterprise is as big as the Enterprise D, that kind of throws me off a little bit. But, you know, to each his own. I like some of the movies on the Kelvin timeline, but I am definitely a Star Trek Prime timeline guy. So that one is printing, but definitely kind of work with the custom supports. Where's Kira? There's Kira. There's that model. And you can see, like, I've got it halfway up the nacelle, just kind of giving it a cocoon until it gets up to and actually connects to the warp strut up here. Let's see. I'm using regular PLA. Would you think PLA? So I use PLA Plus myself. I like PLA Plus. I think it's a smoother material. I feel like it's a stronger material than PLA. And quite honestly, I use inland products. I also use eSun and Duramec. I like all three. But I use their PLA Plus versions. I've always used the PLA Plus. I felt PLA is grainier, and oftentimes just straight PLA I have to eat up hotter than I do PLA Plus. And when it comes down to the cost, inland PLA and inland PLA Plus roughly cost the same, depending on where you're purchasing it from. So from my point of view, I'm going to buy the better PLA Plus, which now is getting renamed by some companies to PLA Pro. So kind of keep that in mind. But I prefer PLA Plus. It's my preferred material. But definitely the custom supports, and then also your own supports. Be mindful. I say fewer supports is better, but this model, I'm doing a 60% overhang angle. I'm doing a lot of support. Let me resize it, and you'll see how much actuals. You see my support I put in. Now you're going to see the auto-generated support that gets added when I'm able to hit preview and load that, which shouldn't be too long. That desktop is a meaty machine. So we'll let that run for a second and get there. But yeah, my preference is PLA Plus. Now, depending on what you're doing, you got to pick the right filament for the right job. Now, if you want something that's a bit stronger but has some flexibility to it, PETG is your go-to. You want something just ridiculously strong and can stand higher heats, ABS. But ABS, anytime I print with ABS, there's always a kind of a stench because it's an oil-based filament versus the other two, which are not. PETG prints well if you can get your settings zeroed in. I've had a request to zero in my settings, and I'm working on it, but it gets frustrating, and I have to stop. And plus, I have other projects that have to be done. So that one's not been a big hit for me. So I'm glad I was able to answer your question there, Geezer Geek. We have any more questions out there tonight? Yep, give Z-Hop an option. And make sure on the Z-Hop, I can't hit it right now, but there's a check mark to Z-Hop. If it's unchecked, it'll just hop over printed parts only. Make sure that's checked that it Z-Hops over everything. That way it's Z-Hopping over any support that's out there too. So 0.04 has worked for me. I've seen some people do 0.6. It's just kind of a preference. And like I said, it just kind of depends on your printer. So, but support is the king when it comes to the Starfleet ships. Get ready to print more than what you want. But if you want to get the Starfleet ship, you want to, what did I do with this? You want to definitely make sure you have support. You can see now in this preview, there's a lot of auto-generated support. All this square stuff that I didn't add that has been added in to make sure that the model prints fully. I mean, there's even, right here, there's auto-generator support that I didn't even think about adding. So right now, I'm right about here in this print. I'm really hoping I get this one. Because I had a pretty major disappointment today, actually. Even I fail some of the times. I'm going to switch back over here. Yes. You want that one too. So I had this unfortunate fail this morning. Beautiful model. Would have been great if it had worked. But unfortunately, it started skipping layers. Got caught, started wobbling on the build plate. Because the concentric nut on my my nozzle carriage got loose. And it wasn't tight against the axle, and it was wobbling and just dragging all over the place. So, do I throw something like this away? Nah. Anybody see that Excelsior class get pwned in the Battle of Wolf 359? Just have its saucer section just pretty much blown off? Yeah, I think that's a project we're gonna do. Because, yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. Just kind of doing a little bit more cutting into the saucer section and make this look like she's been blown apart. We can add in some hull damage, some damage to the warp nacelles, and do a lot with the paint job here. So even while it is not the desired result, we're going to still make something cool out of it. Because if you watched the episode of Deep Space Nine where we first met the Borg, that ship was pretty much annihilated right off the bat. Or you could go to the Dominion War and see some really hurt Excelsior class Federation starships. So just kind of one of those things. It's an opportunity from the ashes of a break or a fail. It's never a fail unless you just can't imagine a success for it. So, as Picard said, it's just a failure of imagination. So, get some more of these gaps filled in. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that's going to look pretty dang cool once it's primed. Then I can come back in and get good black paint, come in with some silver for the cockpit or some dark silver. So I'll do the plane in a glossish black, and then I'll come back with this dark silver and pop out the canopy there to give it a different look. So that's all for filling. Those were the 3 I was needing to catch up on, so I'm going to set these aside. Well, that was 3 of them anyway. There is a 4th. Because that Batwing and the Batmobiles, that was the animated series. Now we've got the 1989 movie. I wish I could find a really cool Batman Forever version of the Batwing. But I have not had luck finding a model or a good CGI render of it to try to model it myself. But just kind of one of those things. Alright. But, you know, like this Vallejo filler, you guys can see it's really easy to apply. It works really well. It's a resin filler, so this works on both PLA and works on both filament and resin prints. So it is a very handy tool to have around. So is the Tamiya. I like the Tamiya for the final layer. It gives a good look. But you can see right there, if I bring it up to the camera out of the light, you can still see the seam line there. But when I go to paint this, after a little bit of hand sanding on this one, it's going to look great. So, alright, that's the last of filling. Hooray, no more filling. Where am I going? Oh, you need to move over with the others to dry. Alright, clean up the work area here a little bit. And I think I'm going to put some paint time in on the Starfield here before I work on assembling the halo. Rearch Part 2, Best of Both Worlds or Emissary? I'm curious. This could lead into a dangerous conversation. Alright, not the brush I want. The brush I want. Alright. I'm going to grab a little bit of dark silver. I'm going to start with the canopy. This Pro Acryl paint will go a long way. You don't need a whole bunch. So, kind of keep that in mind. Now, I primered this black, and this is Vallejo. Hey Mike, how's it going? This is not Vallejo. This is a Citadel Lead Belcher on top of the black to really kind of give it the metallic, kind of get away from that definition. Oh, Best of Both Worlds. That was a good one. And then just the addition to it in Emissary was really good, I thought. I'm going to come back in with this dark silver. I'm kind of curious to see how this dark silver... I didn't want to go with just a straight black in the windows, so I'm kind of hoping this dark silver will give enough contrast to kind of offset that, because as I do this and I come in with a wash to kind of really dinge up the metallics, make this one look like it's served for a lot of combat, I think it'll look pretty good. But this dark silver, I like it because it's going to give that kind of reflective canopy look and offset from the metal is my hope. But I may need to darken it more. Thanks, Juana. Glad to see you here. Been a while. And if you guys are curious, this is a Babylon 5 Aurora class Star Fury. I've done a video on this and the Thunderbolt version. And hopefully here soon I'll be doing a video actually of Babylon 5 itself, because I've got the print sitting behind me. Actually, I didn't realize I hadn't even moved the camera back over. Shame on me. But, well, here. Right there on the wall back there is Babylon 5. So I've got it primed. I haven't had a chance to really actually get into anything on it. And I have a second one printing to show assembly. To show assembly of the model, because you're gonna have to do some work to assemble that one. I've done this one too in resin and miniatures, and probably need to bring a set up here and finish getting them primed, because those are going to be a fun paint, because I could paint them all black if I wanted for the Psychor. I could do a lot of stuff, but it's just not popping the way I'd hoped. But when I come in and kind of lighten up the actual lead belcher, I think it's going to pop more than what we're seeing it pop right now. I think it's just there's a metallic on a metallic, and it's not giving me what I'm hoping for. All else fails, I come in with a layer of black and back with this color again to give it a really dark undertone. But it is darkening compared to the lead belcher. It may take a couple coats. I may try electroplating a print, but right now I'm having to kind of keep some costs down, so that might be down the road definitely. But I would be curious to see how that goes. One, just to see how the print would interact, if it would melt or break. But what's kind of cool is I can come in, I may use like the AK Basalt gray and come in back into the engines to give them that cinder look. Yeah, nickel would look really good on here. Like I said, this is just a base coating. I haven't really even gone into any detailing, because I want to pull in what look like bolt lines and, you know, kind of how they actually really look in the show, how they look like they're multiple parts. But I haven't gotten there yet, unfortunately. I get into so many projects, getting to actually sit and do this is a hard one to pull off some days, especially when it's one for yourself. There we go. So it definitely kind of did darken it up, but not as much as I'd hoped. Maybe a second layer will kind of stand it off a little bit. I know this is not the normal streaming time, guys. I'm just I was going to be sitting here working on stuff, so I said, why not? That second layer kind of helped a little bit. Because I could easily just take this into a black, and if I really mess it up, take it all into a flat black, a little bit of white lines and the Omega symbol, and then you've got the Psychor. So a lot of kind of fun options there. I haven't heard about the model builder game. I'll have to go check that one out. 'Cause, yeah. So the Citadel Lead Belcher is a fantastic metallic color, especially. I'm gonna bring this up a little bit more, because here it is again for a Mandalorian, and for a miniature. That just it did all my work on the armor. It just did all the work. Now I just got to come in with some colors and pull out the clothing, some black, some browns, give a different color to the cape, and I'm done. I'm not going to have to spend a ton of time on the armor, which is going to save me a bunch of time at painting this guy. So I'm probably going to do the blues and that on this guy. This is a resin print from the printer, so yeah, it's a Boba Fett miniature, but I'm going to turn it into something else. But the Lead Belcher it does a fantastic job. For Warhammer, my Necron army, that's what I used for the base coat for the whole dang thing is Lead Belcher. The can's a bit expensive. For one spray can of Lead Belcher, it's about $18, but it works really well. It does a good job. It does a really good job. And I'm gonna get some of this out. If you guys are wondering what that sound is, it's my mixer. So I don't have to sit here and do this for hours on end for some of these paints. That mixer just makes it happen real quick. So I'm kind of hoping this Basalt Gray, because this Basalt Gray I plan on using on the Spirit of Fire model as well. But I'm hoping the Basalt Gray kind of just tones out for these jets. I think as I get closer and closer on it, the Basalt Gray will, one, dull it down, which is what I want, because these are rocket engines that have been firing and kind of give them a different color, come in with some blacks, kind of give that charred look to it, but also just kind of stand them apart from the rest of the ship's hull. And kind of try to step the detail back out a little bit. But if you guys are curious about the paint shaker, let me know and I'll put it in the comments, because it does help out quite a bit in getting your paint bottles mixed together so they come out really a nice texture as they come out as they're supposed to, and you're not sitting here rattling a can back and forth. So it definitely is a tool that has recently hit my arsenal, and I love it. The one I've got is in Kusa. It's actually for tattoo ink, but you put the little paint bottle in the top of it, hold it there, and it does the rest. I'll probably come in with I'll probably do a sky blue with some white to kind of give the engine, because these had blue engines. So have a good one, Wanna Fast. Hope to see you on Tuesday at the normal stream. And you guys are probably like, why aren't you using a big brush? And this little brush is big enough to get the job done. At the same time, I want to take smaller strokes, so I'm kind of overlapping and the smaller brush lets me do that. And I've got some detailed spots in here I want to be careful of, so I'm just using one brush to kind of do everything. Right now it does take a little bit more time, but the after effect result definitely pays off in the long run. At least in my opinion it does, and with this being a model for me, I'm in no rush. Because I've got a lot of these jet engines to do. But I'm only going to work on a couple of these on the stream, because you guys are going to get bored with me. But you can see it's definitely starting to set the engines off in a different tone of color, which is a good thing. Let's see. I printed a Boba Fett model today. Actually, it doesn't. Mike, one thing, that's a resin print. So that was printed with a Halet 1 resin printer. That's not FDM. So, but if you would like, if you'll shoot me an email to Mike at Rise 3D Printing, I'd be glad to share my Ender settings with you. If I haven't already. You may have asked for them already. But I'll gladly share my settings and that. But definitely kind of making that start to pop against that lead belcher. And as I get my contours pulled out, I'll kind of try to get that weathering into it too. Scaling up with an Ender 3 is usually way easier than scaling down. I've got a print right now I'm struggling with the scale down on. And it can be a bear, especially with the Enders, to scale down to that level, to an actual true miniature. I mean, this guy here, he's 6 inches tall, so that's a 6-inch. Where like even these, they were all resin. So I do spend a lot of time with resin in my environment as well. So. Yes, I do. I use the it's the Vallejo weathering chalks. It's kind of funny. It looks like makeup. I don't have it up here though. It's down at my other desk. But I do use that for weathering. A lot of times, I just use makeup sponges and I'll do dry brushing to get a similar effect with just straight acrylic paints with whites and other paints. So like right now, I'm just trying to dull this down, and then I'm going to come in with some blacks and stuff to try to give the, since it has some of the detail, I'm going to try to pull that detail out with black to give this looking like a rocket thruster again. The detail's there, it's just underneath the paint. But it's not lost to the paint, which is key. So when I dry brush, I should get a lot of that detail back to give the rocket booster look. And one of the cool things about having a wet palette is if I've got this left over and I need to darken it, I just throw some black in there, and this paint will stay nice and good in the wet palette for 6 or 7 days. So added advantage of not having wasted paints. But you can see it's definitely starting to pop out. I may even take some of this and kind of weather in the cockpit to make my silver pop. but I just haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to paint this one last one, and then we're going to call, oops, that wasn't smart. I'll call my Star Fury quit, and we'll move on to the Zheng He or the Spirit of Fire here. Sorry, having to get on to my dog. All right. I just need to touch up a little bit. I didn't do this on the last one. All right. We'll get this last one and get in there. But yeah, chalks can be very good. A lot of times before I use a chalk on a model, I will use a like Tamiya sealer, usually a matte finish. Then I'll come in with the chalks, because one, it'll give it a kind of a fresh layer to hold on. Two, I don't have to worry about it interacting with the acrylic paint. And then after it's done, I come back with just another layer of clear sealant and close it up. That way the paint's sealed, the model's sealed, everything's sealed in underneath. And I do the same thing with decals. When I get ready to decal, I'll do a layer of clear, and then keyword clear matte. And then I'll decal. That way all my paint is sealed underneath, and I don't have to worry about the water from the decal or any of that stuff pulling my paint away. And if you guys are curious about what ones I'm using, I can list those in the descriptions in the morning. Well, it'll be tomorrow evening, unfortunately, when I get back. Because I have a few things to do after I go to church in the morning tomorrow. But basically that's gonna pull them, make them stand out a little bit. I may come back with a darker gray, kind of make them stand out a little bit more. But as I start working through that, it'll start looking pretty good. All right. So I promised a hobby tip and trick here. So now it's time for that. I've got that all closed up. Move that aside, put my paints back where they belong. Put my putties where they belong. Always try to keep your work area as clean as you can, because that will let you do more and more work, because you want to work. And believe me, you have no idea how cluttered up this desk gets. It drives me nuts. So was it the Galactica or was it the Pegasus? Because I've done both. My big Galactica is not finished by far painting wise. The one that I have finished, or I'm calling as close to finished, is my Pegasus. I've spent a lot of time. Now this Pegasus, go check out the Pegasus video if you're curious. But the Pegasus, this model is a quick, simple, easy print. It's a great print, awesome detail, and this one's, there's no airbrushing involved in this one. I painted every piece of this one with a brush. And actually I haven't even finished, because I haven't finished the docking bays underneath, so it's almost finished, but really great print. The Galactica, that one, oh, that was sad. Oh. Sorry guys, trying to put the model back. on the shelf where I got it.
No problem.
And so that Galactica, it is 2.5 feet long, and it is not done by far. It is definitely still a work in progress when I'm not frustrated with it. I printed a smaller one for 2-a-day builds. If you're curious, go check out his channel. He's been working on the one that I sent him of that. It's about half the size, but that big Galactica was about 16 or 17 prints on an Ender 3, because that's all I owned at the time. It's a really good model out there for that one. The only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't have any of the guns, but someone made a gun model for it. But it is definitely still a paint job in progress for me. It's just such a massive model that I just have not gotten to finish it. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it's on the stage anymore. I think the Venator took its spot. But it's still down there in the workshop to be worked on, and maybe we'll get it back up here one day and get it finished out. So, but now I got this wonderful Halo project. So this is the larger of the two projects. You guys can see there is a great amount of detail on these segments. What I'm going to do with these, because I just feel like I don't need an 8-foot Halo ring. I just don't need it. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to do a section diorama where these 4 sections are going to get put together. And what I love about this model is the terrain. It's empty. You can do whatever you want here. You could use terrain materials. You could I'm actually going to go do outlining in here with the 3D printing pen. So, but you can easily come in here with, you know, the tough, and come along with the low growth material, the terrain model materials, to actually give terrain to this yourself and really do a really cool set of work here. So I'm really kind of excited to. I've got some support still to pull off, but I'm not really too worried about the support at this point. It's more, I want to get this assembled so I can start working on that diorama of, you know, even creating with the 3D printing pen is, you know, maybe even some miniature Forerunner structures in here to kind of create that diorama, that look of life on a Halo. So one of the things I'm going to do, one of the ways I'm going to put this together is I'm actually going to go on the inside here, and I'm going to do basically I'm going to connect it using the 3D printing pin here in a second. That way it gives a good adhesion, but in this middle section I'm just going to use super glue to give an adhesion. And then the plan is, for the diorama, I want to angle it like this on a stand so you see it, but you can also see a section. I may even build it something like this on a stand, and where it's kind of curved up, but I plan on putting blue LED lights to shine through the gaps here and give you that blue LED look of a Halo ring is kind of the plan. So I've already bought the LEDs, so I've got all that. But in case you weren't here earlier in the video, there's a second Halo ring in process, and you can see it's definitely smaller sections, but I'm going to do a full ring, and I have almost all of it printed, but basically it's going to have the blue LED, and then I'm going to do the terrain all the way around and put it on a stand, and kind of, I'm looking at fiber optic pieces that I can kind of bicycle wheel and make it look like maybe the light shooting up for the Halos charging up, but I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm still kind of in a work in progress with just getting the actual Halo ring printed and assembled. So hopefully the prints downstairs will no, that's a Halo ring. So from the game Halo is what this will be. But we're working on it. So I'm gonna get some beads of glue in here. My pin is almost heated up. A jump gate would be interesting though. Alright, the pin has declared that it is ready. Basically, since I'm not worried about this seam, because I'm going to basically bury it, I'm going to use the pin to adhere this. That way the super glue doesn't have such a hard time, or isn't giving me the fits that it's giving me now. I can just basically put the pin, apply the heat, and as that cools down, it will create a wonderful connection for me. I'm actually going to turn the pin on and get some filament in there as well. Never played Halo, huh? Well, it's for some people, and some people don't have an interest in it. I have played Halo since it came out. A bunch of my friends in high school got me hooked and never looked back. But basically, you can see that adhesion in there just gave me a seal coupled with the super glue. That's going to be a really strong print. The smaller you get in that layer height, the longer it's going to take. But also, David, one of the things you may want to check, what's your infill? If you're printing this as a model, I wouldn't even say above 10% infill. That's where a lot of people can get bogged down, is that infill. But when you're going down to that 0.1 millimeter, I mean, that's very small, very thin, so it's going to compact and take longer. My normal, and you know what, I still have it up while that's being noisy. Let's switch back over and let's take a look at my settings. Oh, so you asked about layer height. So I usually print at 0.15. That's about my average. Even with a BSG, that may be, you may even be able to kick down to 3 or 4% with that infill. Because again, one of those things, you're making a model. So infill, you know, this isn't a toy. If it's a toy, then yeah, you want to up the infill for durability. But if you're planning on just painting it, putting it on a shelf, you don't need to go very high on infill. So my layer height, 0.15, initial layer is 0.3. Wall count matters, where I do a 4. And basically just kind of scrolling through. Top surface layers 1, 0.75 for bottom thickness. My wall counts are a little off standard. And now mind you, I'm doing this with a 0.4 nozzle. I have not reduced my nozzles, and I get great detail. And by detail, I mean detail. So this is the standard size for the Spirit of Fire model. Each section, it's a 3-section print, took me about a day and a half on my settings. And it's really good detail. And those are the same settings that I used for that Pegasus. So it's kind of one of those things, if you go way down, you're going to slow down. because the finer you go, the slower you have to go. But the infill level, you can play with that one. So I had a gentleman who had me print one of these with no infill because he wants to light it up. So it's kind of one of those things. It's just the walls. I upped my wall count to strengthen it, and that's not this one. I didn't care about lighting mine up. But I mean, there's just and I know the lights here don't do justice, but there's just a whole gob of detail on this ship. Even just the engines, the detail within the engine is just a lot of work. But yeah, and especially David, I'm assuming you've got one printer probably. Oh, the camera's not back on me again. Sorry guys. Just yell at me when I do that. Because I remember this is when I was printing the Galactica. I had one Ender 3. And it drove me nuts because it was such a big project. And the Galactica is hard because you have so many fins. There's so much ribbing in there that it makes it really hard to print the Galactica. And really annoying. But it's one of those things, it's worth it. Actually, tell you what. Brief intermission. Be right back. Let's move Halo. That's the one we were talking about, I'm assuming. As you can see, now that you're getting a really close-up look at it, you can see there's a lot that's not done. It's very much still a work in progress. I haven't even gotten all the seam lines covered. I did go find a different model, or they have it out there, that has the shuttle bays open. But, I mean, this one is, well, she's exactly 2 foot long. So it's definitely still a work in progress. I plan on drilling into these ports here, and there is a model out on Thingiverse where someone actually made the guns. I plan on printing them with resin and putting a ball bearing and putting the guns on magnets so I could actually swivel them if I want. But it's definitely still a work in progress. It's not, this one is far from done. I would up to the 1.5 in your next print. Because yeah, that's going to take you quite a while to get through it, and definitely keep that infill percentage low, especially if you're planning on it being a model. And if it's a toy, up the infill. But this poor thing has been through a beating in itself, and it's still very much a paint job in progress with the Mechanicum Gray. I was going for the look of that blue is actually, it's Citadel's Mechanicum Gray. I was going for the Galactica at the end of the series. So that's where I'm kind of going with this is she's been through that horrible nebula a few times. She's got the scarring on her, and we're getting close to breaking her back. So that's where I was going with the blue. I've got a very similar paint color to the Lead Belcher as my base. Actually, that Basalt Gray kind of came out the same color as the Mechanicum Gray. So, hey, that works out. So, but yeah, this was one of the first real big prints you know what? I'm actually kind of curious if I were to print this again. now with everything I know. Because this was printed 3 or 4 years ago when I started out. I just finished printing a 350 size Pegasus. I don't know if I should take this on again or not. Let me think about it. I may take this one on again and do a when I started to now. Hey Douglas, how's it going? But this has been one of the jobs that has come and gone. It was down, and the reason why I had to step away was downstairs in my actual shop. Not up here at the painting and assembly table. So, but yeah, I really should take some. Maybe when I get through the next week or so, we'll take time and we'll finish this one. Or I'll print another one and we'll have another one to finish. But I really need to get this assembled tonight. So I am having to hop back to this hot mess. Because I'm not too worried about getting it assembled. I still have support that needs to be pulled off. But once I have it assembled, I can thread the blue LED in, start working on the electronics, and then figure out, like this one's damaged right here. I'm probably going to punch through and have the stand right there to hold this. So you actually see a curvature of a halo in the buildings and the terrain. So, David, anytime. That's what this channel is about. So it's about getting you going and keeping you going. So I mean, that was the whole reason I started this channel, was I saw people giving up when there was no reason to give up. I was in Facebook group chats and all those kind of media to try to learn myself. And what I learned was people are just toxic in these groups. So I kind of set out on my own to take my 2 or 3 years of experience and knowledge and help people getting into printers, so that are getting into the hobby. Because, you know, it's one of those things. I love to teach. I love to share what I'm working on. And I just want to make a community where it's the same thing for everybody else. So that's what this channel is all about. So make some friends along the way, and if I save one person's print, I've done my job. And if I've kept one printer off eBay or off Facebook Marketplace to be sold, that's oh, I'm to blame for this. Oh dear. Oh dear. It's still a good trait to learn, especially in a day and age like we're in right now. I mean, as long as you have power and can acquire filament, you can make almost anything you need. So, and you know, as stuff's going on with Russia and Ukraine and all that, it's kind of it's a good tool to have in the house right now. Because as long as you have power, as long as you have filament, you can make tools, you can make whatever you need. I'm waiting for the pen to heat up so I can get this next section glued in. Finish adhering it. So I'm kind of glad I'm to blame for it. Kind of a little scared I'm to blame for it, but we're glad to have you here and working with us. So, because as we all learn something, you know, I want this to be a community where we can share and get that stuff out and get it to everybody. So my settings are not the all definitive settings. I mean, I had 3 printers break this morning. I mean, it's just kind of, it happens to all of us. I run into models I just can't get to print, like the White Star. So I appreciate it, Mr. Nobody. Like I said, that's why we're here. That's why I'm doing exactly what I'm doing. Is to just keep everybody moving forward. And, you know, show off really cool projects. Yes, I'm mostly based in science fiction. Halo, Star Trek, big time in Star Trek, Star Wars. There's those super Star Destroyers around here somewhere. There's a lot of projects going on. And we're warmed up. And there's some on the tip that I want to get off. And we'll start getting this guy adhered. I wish there was a better way to show what I was actually doing with the tip of the pin here. I mean, more really, I'm trying not to burn myself, but basically it's just like a welder. Whoops. Stop. Once that cools down, coupled with the super glue, there you go. My super glue accelerator, I forgot, I haven't bought it yet. Waiting for Monday's payday. But basically, as you guys can see, once I put the LED light in here, this whole center spine is going to light up with the blue of Halo. So, and putting this in here, because basically I'm going to cover this give the ground terrain and give the look. So you won't even see these seam lines. And I'm thinking I'm going to use that same lead belcher color. I'm going to go black, lead belcher, and then kind of weather some of the sections, tarnish, and all that stuff. Mike at rise3dprinting.com is my email. So, but yeah, I haven't bought it yet. I'm streaming before I'm supposed to, Douglas. I am a few days early than my usual stream, but like I said, I was sitting here working on stuff, and it just kind of made sense to add it in and get everybody going. And I know Tuesday night is not always the easiest to join me when I'm streaming on Tuesdays, so I was kind of like, you know what? I'm kind of curious how tonight would go, so. Uh-oh, is I telling on me that I do way too much stuff in a day? Because he's got no room to talk. I think he goes harder than I do and stuff. Some support stuck in here. Needs to come out. There we go. Have a good night, Mike. Have a good one. Oh, I appreciate it, Douglas. Kind of one of those things. I just, like I said, I was going to be sitting here working on stuff, and I thought, why not just share with everybody? So the fact that you left them tells me you enjoy what I'm doing, and keep on doing it. So appreciate it, man. There's still a piece stuck in here. Come on out. There we go. All right. Yes, but Zai, the question is, what craft am I dedicated to? I do too many things in a day. Alright. Before I make this mistake again, I'm going to start heating the pin up. I'm going to start getting the super glue on here. So... really kind of wishing I had the accelerator, but hey, that's what the 3D printing pin is here to help cheat with. So, and again, guys, the super glue, this is, well, it's $1.25 now, but Dollar Tree, their price went up here for us, but it's just straight super glue brand is all I really use for a lot of this stuff, coupled with the coupled with the pen, it can create a really nice look. I mean, come on, who doesn't want their own halo ring? You know. Keep an eye on those deals, Douglas, because I know Micro Center has done it twice in the last 2 months where you could get an Ender 3 for $100. Of course, again, Zai's right on the money with my actual recommended beginner printer. The Odin 5 is a great one. I don't think I've gotten mine to mess up, to be honest, which, knock on wood, I can't knock on wood at the moment, but my Odin 5 is a beast. It's the same size as an Ender, but it comes with all the bells and whistle upgrades that you have to buy in the long run for the Ender. That begs the question, Zai, you've been printing? Get this seam together here, and we will have the halo diorama off to a good start. All right, and there we go. So this is just going to be a sectional diorama. It's not going to be a full halo ring. And basically I'm gonna put a stand in the bottom here and stand it up where you guys can't see, but I'll actually, on the little camera, it's basically gonna stand up just like this. And you'll have the blue light coming out of the back. Get it back in frame here. So you'll have the blue LED shining out the back. Actually, probably setting it like this will definitely let the glue adhere better. The blue LED will be coming out the black line. You'll have the train put in here. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty cool model once it's fully assembled, because basically if I kept going with this size, it's going to be 6 or 7 feet tall. Well, I'm sure you guys would love for me to print one that big. I'm going to stick with the little 4-foot version for now. I have never gotten a Prusa, Douglas. I've heard fantastic things about Prusa, but then I look at their price tag and their size, and I know there are good printers out there that I can get more printer for my buck. The Odin retail for an Odin is $359, I believe, but a lot of times you can get them for like $80 off on I've seen the Odin honestly on sale once for $150. So it's watching Amazon sales and making sure you can pull the trigger. The Ender 3, there's a lot of people that have it. It's a very well-known printer from Creality. It usually is recommended as one of the beginner printers. It's very basic in what it has on it. I feel like it is kind of flawed in my personal opinion. It's missing a lot that could make starting printing easier. But if you want to really learn and know your machine, the Ender 3 is a great place to go. Now, my personal preference is the Creality CR10 V2 and V3. They're running about $380 right now, but I can print a Boba Fett helmet or Mandalorian helmet on one of those with no problem. It's sized to build this stuff. You guys, a lot of the models you see are from the CR10s. One, I have 4 of them, but it is just my favorite printer to print with over time. And now you guys have started seeing, like these, more resin coming to the table. I've got a spattering of just about everybody's resin printer right now. I got the Saturn S, which you guys will be seeing a video on the Saturn S this coming Friday. Coming up about unboxing it, putting it together, and the first prints. I'm loving the Saturn S. I am just loving it. I've got the Photon Mono X as well, and quite honestly, it's beating the pants out the Photon Mono X in my opinion. But that's my opinion, and we'll have a video discussing that later on in the coming months as I get more familiar with both, now that I've got both working, purring like kittens. But even the resin printers, those come with additional costs. One, the resin is about twice as much as a spool of filament, even though they're trying to bring films down, costs down on resin. But it's just kind of one of those things. Not only do you have to buy the resin printer, you got to buy the wash and cure station. You got to make sure you have nitrate gloves. You have a lot of disposable stuff that's going on with resin. And one thing, if you ever do resin, do not pour it down your drain. No, I did not do this, but people have done it, and resin reacts with water, unless it's the water dissolution resin. And you get that stuff in your pipes are done. So avoid a horrible plumbing mistake. Do not ever pour resin down your drain. So, again, I did not do this, but I know someone who has, and yeah. For everything that machine has, I've got the Saturn S, and right now on a lot of forums for resin 3D printing, it's the top machine, especially for reliability. It's very well packed. The box when it got here was pretty beat up, but the printer was fine. It worked great. So, and it's working great. I'm still tweaking settings a little bit. You know, it's new, but the first test print went off without even a hitch. It took me 6 or 7 times to get the Anycubic print to go off right. So, the Voxlab Proxima, while smaller, is a really good printer. The Halo 1 from Creality is really, really good. I like it a lot. Actually, this came out of the Halo 1. I know the camera probably doesn't do it justice, but you can see the diamonding pattern in the cloak, the axe, the detail in the beard, the floor. And there's just a lot of detail with this figurine that is even transposed, and the camera's not going to autofocus on it. It figures. That's even transposed even on the actual D&D size miniature itself. Because this guy's 300 or 400 times uplifted of that one. So, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to be cutting the stream off here in a few minutes, guys. But all in all, you got some really cool models. Got a lot of work done. I'm actually surprised we got this done. So I think it's going to be really cool once I kind of finish putting it together. It's going to be a really cool desk piece. Having that halo terrain and the blue light that's coming off of it. So, and maybe on Tuesday I'll have all the parts for the small halo ring finally printed out. We can start doing some assembly on it and kind of start seeing the scope of that one. So, but all in all, guys, I appreciate everybody for showing up tonight. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. Or if you're just watching this on the replay, definitely. If you've got any questions, guys, make sure you leave the comments down below. Interaction is key with all this stuff. And if you haven't become one and you want to help support the channel, go over there to Patreon and join the Patreon and help fund some projects and get your name up on a video. So, at that, I'm going to say goodnight, guys. I appreciate you, and we will talk to you definitely on Tuesday, if not before. All right, thank you, guys.